In my perspective, there stood my parents, motionless, as if bracing themselves to offer an apology. "Thank you for traveling such a distance," my mother began, her gaze lowered in a blend of desperation and hope. "We've heard you might assist our struggling factory, and for that, we're profoundly thankful." My father added his piece, his eyes averted, sharing in the quiet plea for help. It was ironic that the factory they sought help for was the very place their daughter worked, the daughter they had left behind in the frigid mountains. "Let's focus on business matters. Please look at me," I encouraged. As they raised their heads, their expressions of shock upon hearing my familiar voice were almost comical, bringing a burst of laughter from me. "Now, how can I help you?" I introduced myself formally. "My name is Violet Wilson. I reside in a part of the city that's still rural, scattered with farms. Historically, my family operated a small smithy, crafting and fixing farm tools. Since my great-grandfather's era, we began manufacturing parts for agricultural machines and expanded the business considerably. Known as the Wilson Machinery under the leadership of my father, Liam, and my mother, Samantha, as the executive director, our family name carried weight here. I have an elder brother, Jackson, a prodigy cherished by our parents, fulfilling the community's expectations by attending a prestigious high school. As for me, I often felt overlooked in a society that favored sons over daughters. With expectations firmly set on Jackson to continue the family legacy, I was starkly reminded by my father, a woman cannot inherit the family estate. Once you finish high school, that's it. These words, declared coldly when I was just in middle school, outlined a predetermined path for me, pushing me to focus solely on my academics, though setting such a goal was a heavy burden at that age. Jackson and I were so different it was hard to believe we were related. In school, he excelled academically, while I thrived in physical activities, racing across the fields like a wild deer. My athletic prowess was the one area where I could outshine my brother. However, the absence of academic talents made school challenging for me, and despite my best efforts, my grades barely improved. Witnessing my struggles, my parents scoffed, "You're nothing like Jackson. Do you not see your own limitations?" Their harsh words stung, yet fueled my determination. Then came a day when my midterm results were poor despite my hard work, leaving me devastated. My parents mocked me upon seeing my grades. "We should have known better. Investing further in you is pointless. You just don't have what Jackson does." As I endured their scolding, I silently prayed for the ordeal to end. Fortunately, Jackson stepped in to tutor me, his way of showing support, even if he wasn't one to express his emotions openly to our parents. Jackson was always a steady force in my life, a reassuring presence despite our parents' stringent attitudes. "It might be partly my fault our parents are so demanding, but remember, I'm always here for you," he reassured me. His words touched me deeply, and I found tears streaming down my cheeks. Bolstered by his support, I felt ready to take on any obstacle. As I progressed into my second year of middle school, Jackson passed the entrance exams for a prestigious university in the metropolitan area and moved away. His departure left his room empty and me alone, with the stark comparisons drawn by our parents. While Jackson naturally shone with his academic talents, I was left to carve my own path. I found solace and joy in running and joined the school's track team. My love for running deepened, and I set my sights on becoming a long-distance runner, hoping to secure a scholarship through athletics from a school renowned for its relay teams. Though Jackson excelled in his studies, he lacked athletic prowess, a domain where I felt I could finally outshine him. However, my parents seemed only interested in academic achievements, often overlooking my athletic successes. As Jackson approached his 19th birthday, our parents planned an extravagant celebration. Get him an expensive watch. "If you can't afford that, forget about going to university," my mother stated bluntly. Without the means to buy such a gift, I was left out as relatives gathered for a grand dinner in his honor. "Jackson deserves this, because he excels. You, with your running obsession, would only dampen the spirits," my mother coldly remarked, leaving me to dine on instant noodles at home, alone with my tears and the steam rising from the bowl echoing my growing sense of isolation. During a summer break, Jackson, now working at a top firm and carrying the air of someone who'd matured rapidly, introduced me to the internet. This is an older model, but it's fast enough for browsing. It might even help with your studies, he said, handing me a laptop with a warm smile. He also gave me a beginner's guide to programming, encouraging me to explore this new field. This gift marked my entry into the world of information technology. Despite initially struggling with mathematical concepts, I found joy in creating programs. Each successful code I wrote brought a profound sense of achievement, and slowly, a new passion began to crystallize, though it was still forming its shape. One day, my father abruptly dismissed this budding dream. "Are you playing games on that computer again instead of studying?" he accused. "I'm programming, not playing," I responded, frustration coloring my tone. My words, hinting at his outdated views, only ignited his temper further. "What nonsense are you talking about, Violet?" he snapped, grabbing the laptop and throwing it out the window in a fit of anger. "Now that it's broken, maybe you'll focus on your studies." As I watched him walk away with a self-satisfied smirk, I felt a mix of anger and heartbreak. I went outside to retrieve the laptop, only to find it shattered on the ground, its screen cracked, a stark symbol of my thwarted aspirations. Yet, even amidst the fragments of broken dreams, my resolve to forge my own path only grew stronger. The laptop was irreparably damaged. It wouldn't turn on anymore. Just when programming had begun to captivate me, offering a glimpse of a promising future, my brother's precious gift lay in pieces, its case cracked, completely useless. Without the funds for repairs, it seemed my newfound passion might fade away. As I stood amidst the remains of the broken laptop, despair washed over me. The device that symbolized my escape into a world of possibilities was now just a pile of debris. Unable to afford the repair costs, the prospect of continuing my programming journey looked bleak. However, while walking to school one day, burdened with heavy thoughts, a friend suggested a simple yet hopeful solution. "Why don't you use the school's desktop computers?" Inspired by this idea, I approached my teacher, who graciously allowed me access to the computer lab. This room soon became my sanctuary, where I could immerse myself in programming after school. As I dedicated more time to the school computers, even on weekends, a teacher noticed my dedication and offered extra support. My skills in programming sharpened steadily throughout high school. Then, during the summer of my sophomore year, my brother suggested I attend a summer course in Miami. I managed to fund the travel expenses with money from part-time jobs, staying in a dormitory of the company where my brother worked, and receiving extra tutoring in the evenings from him and his friend, Charles. Charles, quirky and unused to socializing with women due to his all-boys school background, became a unique presence that summer. My brother teased, "Don't worry, he's not bad, just a bit clueless around ladies." Our lighthearted banter and Charles's innocence added a special touch to those days, making my passion for programming soar. By the end of the summer, a new chapter of my life had begun. With the help of my brother and Charles, I had delved deep into the world of programming, thoroughly enchanted by its allure. Charles was different from my brother, polite and refined, his eccentricity never malicious, and I found myself unexpectedly charmed by him. As I entered the final summer of high school, reflecting on the earlier destruction of my computer, my brother brought home a surprise during his visit. He had spoken to Charles about my situation, and Charles, coming from a wealthy background, had offered a used laptop as a gift. "He's quite fond of you," my brother hinted with a mischievous chuckle, handing me the laptop. My face flushed with surprise and a bit of embarrassment as my brother playfully tapped my head. From then on, I received plenty of guidance from both my brother and Charles, and my programming skills significantly improved. "I never thought you'd take such an interest in programming," my brother remarked one day. "Yeah, it's fascinating," I replied. "Sometimes unexpected things happen, especially when there's a glitch in the calculations." This new journey with programming wasn't just about building skills. It was about discovering a passion that would define my future. Programming wasn't just a pastime for me. It was a passion. The thrill of solving a complex problem and seeing my programs run successfully brought me indescribable joy. Fueled by this enthusiasm, I made a bold decision to leave behind university life and pursue a career in a company located in the metropolitan area. With a new computer in hand, I was eager to carve out my future, continuously improving my programming skills and embracing each new challenge as part of my ongoing adventure. One chilly winter day, as I was preparing to embark on this new chapter, my parents unexpectedly suggested a family trip, something we hadn't done in years. Surprised by their sudden change of tone, I cautiously welcomed the idea. My brother was also returning home for the trip, and together we drove to a luxury hotel nestled in a snow-laden region. Throughout the drive and during our stay, my parents appeared unusually cheerful, mainly focusing their conversation on my brother's career and the challenges facing my father's business. The hotel offered a relaxing escape with its inviting pool and gourmet meals, but the warmth from my parents felt strangely forced. Late one night, as I got up to use the bathroom, I overheard them whispering in their room, "We can't keep spending on her. It's better if she stays behind this time. Yes, it's time for a thorough house cleaning." They were discussing cutting me off, essentially abandoning me. This revelation weighed heavily on my heart, but I resolved to accept my fate and move forward. The ride back was somber, with minimal conversation, likely due to the exhaustion from the trip. As we neared a parking area, my father mentioned he wanted a coffee. My brother suggested stopping there to buy some. As they sat in the car, I walked to the vending machines and selected a hot coffee for my father, tea for my mother, and a milk tea for myself. When I turned back towards the car, I saw my father pulling my suitcase out of the trunk. "Well, this is goodbye," he said abruptly. "It's too costly in time and fuel to drive you all the way to the station. You're like a dog, easily tamed with a little kindness." I was stunned. "Isn't the station still far from here?" I asked. His response was dismissive. "Do whatever you want. Run or walk, you were in the track team after all. You need to make it on your own from now on. All right, the cleaning is complete. You were just clutter in the way." My brother remained silent throughout this harsh exchange, but gently placed my coat over the suitcase. As I stood in the snowy parking area, I watched their car vanish into the distance. Accepting this abrupt end to my familial ties felt like my only choice, a stark but freeing resolution to forge my path independently, powered by the resilience and determination that my years in track and programming had instilled in me. Standing alone in the snowy parking area, I sensed the beginning of a new chapter in my life. It was a moment of stark realization and transformation, marking the end of one phase and the exciting start of another. A decade later, I found myself driving back to my hometown, now thriving as a project leader at a cutting-edge tech company. My return was prompted by a professional engagement at the local factory, a place intertwined with both fond and painful memories. As I approached the familiar site, anticipation and old emotions stirred within me. "Violet," a familiar voice called out as I parked. Turning around, I saw my brother stepping out of a car, his face breaking into a wide smile. "I was worried you might get lost, given how much the area has changed." "No worries, the GPS got me here just fine," I replied, sharing a light moment before we dove into the reason for our reunion. "We've got a big project ahead, and the other party has high expectations. We need to be on top of our game," my brother briefed me as we walked towards the factory. I teased him with a grin. "Let's see if you can keep up with me. Don't underestimate a city-toughened sister." He laughed, clearly impressed. "You've grown strong." Indeed, it was this project that brought us back together. My brother had leveraged his experience from a major corporation to launch a startup focused on developing innovative mechanical solutions. His products were gaining traction and reviving our struggling hometown factory. As we entered the factory, a rush of cold air laced with nostalgia hit me. It was like stepping back in time, each corner holding echoes of my past. Then, as if on cue, I saw our parents waiting, their postures tense with anticipation of making amends. "Thank you for coming all this way," my mother said, her voice laden with remorse. "We're just glad to be able to help," my brother replied, trying to ease their formality. "No, We must show our true gratitude to our esteemed guests from Charles Industries, my father insisted, emphasizing their sincerity. At that moment, they finally noticed me. That voice, it sounds familiar. They murmured, their expressions puzzled. I couldn't help but chuckle as they slowly recognized me. Yes, it's me, Violet. The one you left in the snowy mountains. Their astonishment was palpable. Violet? How come you're here? We were told someone from Charles Industries would be coming. Actually, I am now serving as a project leader at Charles Industries, I explained. Charles's father had become the president, and after the day I was abandoned, Charles, a friend of Jackson, had reached out to assist me. Jackson had anticipated the difficult times ahead and had taken steps to ensure I had a support system. This reunion was not just about confronting the past, but also about moving forward with new opportunities and reconciliations. It was a chance to redefine relationships and build on the new foundations I had established. Now, standing in the factory that once symbolized my exclusion, I was ready to lead a project that could possibly rejuvenate it, turning old wounds into sources of strength. Now, I've established myself significantly in the industry. In fact, I'm married and my spouse is a department head at Charles Industries. I was sent here under the president's directive to spearhead this factory's rejuvenation project. Do you understand? I explained as my parents and others listened intently. At that moment, memories of past betrayal surfaced. Before that day in the snowy mountains, my brother had handed me a note revealing our parents' intentions to abandon me during the trip. It read, "Our parents plan to use this trip to leave you behind. If anything happens, call this number." As predicted, when I found myself alone and stranded, I called the number, and Charles responded immediately. Embarrassed yet resolute, Charles confessed he had taken leave in advance, suspecting I might need help. "I'm really grateful you came to pick me up," I told him through tears. Charles, without a word, packed my luggage into his car, and we left that cold, unwelcoming place behind. The job I landed in Miami turned out to be with a subsidiary of the company managed by Charles's father. With the backing of my brother and Charles, I balanced work with studies, enrolling in a night university the following year. After graduation, I transitioned to the main company where Charles's father was in charge. There, I utilized my expertise to secure a position in construction management. Over time, as Charles moved up the ranks, I took on the role of project leader under his guidance. Working closely with Charles, my respect for him deepened into love. After his proposal, we got married. I continued to thrive professionally and took part in a major project that focused on reshoring production from overseas due to rising labor costs and currency issues, making overseas manufacturing less viable. During this time, I received unexpected news from my brother that our family's factory was in financial trouble. It had been undercutting prices to stay competitive, ultimately cornering itself financially. Considering these circumstances, my brother and I decided to revisit our family's factory. Upon arrival, as a representative of Charles Industries, my presence changed my parents' demeanor. They suddenly seemed hopeful. Now that Violet is here, we can surely find a way through this crisis. It's natural for a daughter to help her family in times like these, they assumed. Facing them squarely, I had to set the record straight. Perhaps you're misunderstanding the situation. I don't consider you my parents in the personal sense anymore. My involvement here will remain strictly professional. Shocked by my response, they retorted, "How can you be so cold? We didn't raise you to be this heartless." Calmly, I responded, "The state this factory is in is the result of poor management decisions on your part. Therefore, we'll be overhauling the management team with personnel from our headquarters. This means, effectively, the end of your management roles here." My father, red-faced and defiant, protested, "The factory will be sold, and that should cover the debts. I should be able to continue managing it, shouldn't I?" I shook my head, delivering the hard truth. "I cannot trust you with the management of this factory anymore. As for the debts, the restructuring plan is made possible thanks to Jackson's efforts and the resources of Charles Industries. What happens next in your life is your own challenge to face. Good luck." This marked a pivotal moment, not just in the history of the factory, but in my personal narrative, as I closed the chapter on my old family ties and moved forward with renewed determination. As my brother and I walked away from the confrontation with our parents, they slumped down, defeated. "Well, that finally settles it," I said, but I quickly corrected myself. "It's not the end, though. It's actually just the beginning. This place is going to transform into a hub for domestic production." "Yeah, with the production management system you developed and my new machine tools, we have a high chance of becoming the best in the whole country," my brother responded with enthusiasm. "What?" "No, we're not just aiming to be the best in the country. We're aiming to be the best in the world," I declared. Sharing such lofty aspirations, my brother laughed heartily, echoing the ambition that now defined us. As expected, our parents eventually sold the factory, but the amount they received wasn't enough to cover their debts. I heard they ended up working in a very cold location, and although they have begged us for money multiple times, we've deliberately chosen not to respond. However, I couldn't completely ignore their plight, so as an ironic gesture, recalling how they left me out in the cold, I sent them a box of disposable hand warmers I had collected during my college days. Meanwhile, the factory we purchased was revitalized and is now thriving after renovations. It has become a central hub for manufacturing, inventory management, and shipping, providing new jobs for the local community and gaining significant appreciation. Alongside my husband, I'm leading new projects to expand our division. In the future, we plan to focus on supporting American companies in their overseas market expansions and business partnerships. Our lives are busy, but a few times a year, we take time to rest at that distant hotel, especially when it starts to snow. Each year, visiting that spot stirs something in my heart. "What are you thinking about?" "Reflecting on the past again?" my husband asked gently during one of our visits. "Yes, this place holds unforgettable memories that linger in my heart," I responded. "Me too. It all started here," he said with a smile. "I remember that day. Despite it being the middle of winter, your face was beet red like a boiled octopus," I said, trying to hold back my laughter. "Haha, you too. Your face was so red. You looked like a child," he retorted. We looked at each other and burst into laughter together. "Thank you. I love you," I said, filled with emotion. "No, thank you. Life is like a book composed of many stories. Episodes between a couple like us form a chapter of that story, and it's quite captivating," he replied, squeezing my hand as we both cherished the journey that began in that snowy parking area, a journey that transformed our lives forever.